Let's shift back here now and talk about the technology that was used over the last years to address the threats. Now, this is my own interpretation of the history of the firewall. I was the guy at Gartner who was responsible for keeping track of the firewall space over much of this period of time. And so this is basically how it settles out in my mind. It might be useful for you to think of it as well this way. And first of all, I give credit to Checkpoint Software for developing the first generation firewalls. Now, mind you, there were proxies that went before this and sacrificial hosts and things, but Checkpoint created the first really viable commercial firewall, and they leveraged very, very simple user interface, graphic interface, and technology called stateful inspection, which, by the way, they patented, but never ever prosecuted anybody who violated their patent rights. So by 2000, Checkpoint owned probably about half of the market for firewalls. Now, there was a little problem with the way Checkpoint went to market. If as the internet was growing and networking became almost more important than desktop computing, you had to look at some of the other paradigms that existed, and Checkpoint chose the Microsoft paradigm over the Apple paradigm. The Microsoft paradigm, of course, is just be a software vendor, allow everybody else to adapt your software to their standard hardware platforms, which is all well and good. And of course, Apple's was, no, we're going to own the hardware and the software. But I don't think it worked very well in the network, because you ended up, if you were a customer of Checkpoint, you ended up purchasing a product and going through the quote process alone, where they'd say, okay, here's $19,995 for the Checkpoint software, and would you like that on a Dell, Sun, IBM, or SGI computer? And then you'd have to pick what hardware platform you got the product on, and potentially the particular reseller that was selling it to you didn't have the hardware that you liked. And anyways, you'd end up with this mismatch of hardware and software supported by different vendors, and it was a nightmare trying to get the product supported. So some geniuses at a little company called NetScreen decided to combine the software with the hardware and sell it as an appliance. And while they're at it, because networking is hard to do at high speeds, they added some custom hardware and created the NetScreen firewall. So NetScreen went on to take a huge chunk of Checkpoint's potential market share and sold to Juniper Networks for just over $4 billion. So that's the second generation. Very simple, easy idea, put the software on an appliance. Third generation is where we are today, I believe, with combining not only the stateful inspection firewall, but adding the ability to inspect content and block threats. So, if you look at all the different things that can go wrong with a firewall, pretty much you've got to put a powerful IPS box behind the firewall, or better yet, combine IPS with the firewall, and you get this third generation. It's another term for it is a complete content inspection firewall, and it allows you to look at the packet payloads after assembly and run signatures and protocol anomaly detection, and even bandwidth rate limiting on the traffic that goes through it. So the fourth generation of firewall, I believe, takes what IDC and others are calling UTM and adds the networking side to it. So it adds the layer 3 routing and the layer 2 switching. And I think over the next 5 years, that's where you're going to start to see a lot of the technology going. So let's drill down a little into network security's evolution. And this is what Fortinet's finding as we go to just about any customer. With the advent and evolution of threats, we've added layer after layer after layer of security solutions, point solutions, whatever you want to call them, to block each of those threats. So antivirus in line, go to Trend. You want to do content URL filtering, go to WebSense. You want to do spyware, go to McAfee. All of these build up to the point where most IT organizations are running multiple network security products from multiple vendors. So the argument that you could combine all those in a single box goes over extremely well, because it's not the combination of the box that's so attractive, it's the elimination of so many vendors that's attractive. So you don't have contract renewals every year with every single vendor, you don't have the expense of those renewals, you don't have training on each of those products, each of those user interfaces, and you don't have the inherent sales relationship with each of those vendors. So you are able to collapse both your VPN technology, your IPS, your firewall, your network antivirus, anti-spam, URL content filtering, and your anti-spyware into this single box. Now, how do you get there? You've got to have a special capability, I think, that goes beyond just running all those different pieces of software on a Linux platform.